to the stage. First of all, our editor of the Media Leader, Omar, and his esteemed guest, Yannick Bollore.
Thank you, Steve, and hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming today, and welcome to Yannick Bollore, who's CEO and Chairman of Havas and Chairman of Vivendi, and we'll talk about your different hats and how you wear them in just a second. So as Steve mentioned, the theme for today is Media 3.0. And what does that mean? Well, what I think it means, having written about this advertising and media industry for quite a while, is that things are getting messier and things are getting slightly more complicated, and marketers often need different sorts of questions answered, agencies need different skill sets, and media owners face different problems with reaching audiences. You know all that, and you'll hear a lot about different strategies and solutions for how we navigate Media 3.0 going forward. But we thought it was really important to get someone of Yannick's influence and decision-making authority in this industry here to kick off Future Media today. Because Havas and Vivendi are actually very interesting businesses in terms of not just ad agency, not just media agency, but you have lots of fingers in different pies in terms of music, cinema, TV, publishing. So first of all, what's the strategy behind what you're trying? You've been in charge of Havas now for 10 years. What's the grand strategy in terms of Media 3.0 and where you think this industry is going? To ask you a big question to start with.
Yeah, I mean, so first, thank you very much for inviting me in such an impressive crowd, the #1 conference in media in the UK, maybe in the world. So I mean, it's an immense honor to be with you today. I think, I mean, you said Media 3.0. It's getting more complex, and as we say in the media industry, the more complex it gets, the best it is for media agencies. So I know we have a lot of media agencies represented here today, which is a good thing. Now, basically, just to maybe come back on Vivendi, and maybe we'll go more deeply and specifically on Havas, we are trying to build a world leader in media content and communication. So you said we operate in a different field of activities. We are the European leader in pay TV and movie production through Canal+. We are one of the world communication leaders through Havas. We also operate in the gaming industry. You talked about music. We used to be the 100% owner of Universal Music Group, the world leader in music. And the Vivendi is as a group is at a tipping point because last year we spun off Universal Music Group. We listed it on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, which is a great success. And we're about to merge with another group called the Lagardère Group, which is one of the world leaders in travel, retail, and experiences, and book publishing. So Vivendi is clearly opening up a new chapter, and clearly everything is centered around media and content. And that's true that in the past 10 years that I've been at the helm of Havas, this world of media has completely changed. And the question is, how do we adapt ourselves? What we try to stick with at Vivendi in terms of strategic roadmap is defined around, I would say, 3 pillars. The #1 is transformation, #2 is about internationalization, and #3 about integration. If I zoom on transformation, I think it's very important that as a group, as any group represented here today in this very room, I think it's very important that we help all our businesses, all our agencies to transform themselves. I mean, if you consider what have happened in the past 15 years, the past 10 years, what is happening today and what's going to happen in the next 10 years, I think it's very important to adapt, to train our people, not just to the digital revolution, to the social commerce revolution, to the artificial intelligence. I'm sure we get many questions around that. So I think it's very important to be at the forefront of innovation. I think it's very important to get global. I mean, you would have invited me 15 years ago. I would have said internationalization, it's not that important for a business. It's very localized. Medias are very local. We didn't have those global distribution platforms through digital and over the top. So you can have a local business, even for, I mean, from an advertising standpoint. advertising was localized. I mean, you had different form of ads by countries, different agencies from different groups. I remember in France, I'm sure it was the same in the UK, we had some different agencies by cities, because the advertising for a car in Paris was not the same as an advertising for a car in Lyon or in Marseille. And I don't really know why, but this was the case. Now it's the same advertising everywhere in the world, which is quite a shock, because when you travel, I'm sure all of you are traveling a lot. When you go to Paris, to New York, to Chicago, to Singapore, to lots of different cities, you have the same kind of retail experience, advertising. I mean, the world is becoming more and more the same. And today, we have those platforms that are getting global, so it's really important that every business in the media industry builds a global reach, whether it is through acquisitions or through partnership. I think it's very, very important to have global teams all around the world, maybe with strong hub in some regions, but I think in today's world, you need to think global, and I think it's going to be even more important in the coming years. And the last thing is about integration, because Vivendi operates in different fields of activity. I mean, music, TV, communication, video games. How can we create something better together than if all our businesses were in standalone? So we have been working a lot during the past years with my friend Arnaud de Puyfontaine and all the team at Vivendi to make sure that when a business joins Vivendi, it gets stronger. And I can guarantee that since Havas has joined Vivendi in 2017, it has been a game changer for us. So this is where we are. I mean,
specifically, why has that been a game changer? I mean, you talked about the mergers and acquisitions over the last 10 years. I mean, from the outside, maybe seems quite opportunistic in terms of what you've tried to buy and cobble together and integrate now. Yeah. I mean, what is the grand strategy behind Vivendi? Where is it all going? Explain to me why it's just not opportunistic.
I like when you say opportunistic, because we like to say that sometimes what we call strategy is an opportunity that we post-rationalize.
It's a post-rationalizable.
Yeah. No, that's true that we need to remain opportunistic. I mean, it's not something bad to be opportunistic. We need to remain agile. The question is, when we acquire a business, or even when we sell a business or spin off a business, as we did with Universal Music Group, we try to think in the best interest of all the parties. Will it be better for Havas to join Vivendi? Will it be better for Canal+ to be part of Vivendi? Will it be better for Universal Music to be listed on its own? And I think this is a question top management of company needs to ask constantly. And in today's world, which is changing so rapidly, I think we need to remain open. What we did with Universal Music Group was quite a surprise, being honest, because the group was doing well. But when you look at the sum of Universal Music Group plus Vivendi today, it's much bigger than what it was when we were together. Universal Music Group became very important, very strong. They had to face a big disruption through the digital revolution. By the way, music was the first industry to get disrupted. You remember at the end of the 90s, beginning of the years 2000, I mean, piracy was everywhere in music.
Yeah,
we were
Napster,
not paying,
downloading, piracy, yeah.
We had music for free.
So that's interesting about Universal Music in particular, because if we were speaking maybe 6 or 7 years ago when you fully owned that business, you might have told me a story about, well, we've got Canal Studio and we've got Universal Music, and it's great because all the music that a movie company is using, we keep everything in house, and all the ads that Havas ad agencies or media agencies are using, you have all the material in house, and it creates that synergetic effect. But it sounds like you're not interested in doing that anymore. Is what you're saying perhaps then media ownership is less important than maybe the talent and the ideas and the execution of media rather than the ownership?
I mean, it's a great question. The question is, do you need to own 100% of a company? I mean, Universal Music Group, now we own 28.5%. We are by far the largest shareholder. We continue to do tons of things together around data. I mean, last 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles, we did a conference around health and music, how music can help to improve health conditions. So the partnership and the ties we have created between Havas and Universal Music Group and all the Vivendi entities will remain for life. It's like brotherhood or cousinhood, and we will continue to work together. I believe it's important to have the opportunity to build things in-house, but also we need to remain open to the world. Havas needs to be able to work also with Warner Music, with Sony Music, with independent music label. I think the question is, how do you create a best of both world approach. I mean, I'm a huge believer in the approach of creating best of both worlds, being pragmatic, changing your mind if you need to change your mind, and this is how it works. But when you look at the journey we have had together, I mean, it's fantastic. And being part of a larger group, I mean, in times of, I mean, during tough times, like I remember COVID, how can we forget about COVID? Being part of Vivendi for Havas has been a game changer. I remember a conversation we had with Havas team's CFO and management team about how can we reduce, I mean, you remember March 2020, I mean, the industry was collapsing. We had no idea what's going to happen by the end of the year, what's going to happen next year. We thought at this time that the business would continue to decline or will completely collapse. So many of the agencies in the industry started to not just to cut costs, but to reduce compensation, to do some layoffs, which, I mean, I don't want to be judgmental. I understand. I mean, it was a tough time. But thanks to this Vivendi ownership and belonging, and thanks to the fact that Vivendi is a family group, which can give us the ability to develop a long-term strategy and not to be just focused on quarterly earnings for the stock market, we have been able to say, okay, look, guys, I know it's a tough time, but Vivendi can afford it. So first, we won't cut any compensation. And second, we won't do any layoffs during the lockdown. And we were the only group of the industry not doing any layoffs and make it public during this time, which, by the way, has been a very smart business decision. Because when the business came back very rapidly, finally at the end of 2020, and 2021 was even better than 2019 for the industry, we had all our workforce super motivated. They knew that they can count on their company. I think the kind of relationship in today's world where talent is very hard to keep, to attract, and to retain, the kind of action that gives an extra motivation and loyalty to employees toward their family, I mean, their professional family.
So what you're saying is that by being in private ownership as opposed to being a listed company going into the pandemic, you were better insulated to make strategic long-term decisions than your competitors. I mean, that's quite interesting. I mean, don't you face at Havas, with all the holding companies, frankly, that you make most of your money from the media agencies, don't you? I'd love for you to open the books and kind of show me exactly. But
exactly, I will tell you this year, it's going to be exactly 1/3 media, 1/3 creative, and 1/3 health. We are big in the pharma industry, and both in terms of revenue and profit, it's quite balanced actually.
So tell me, okay. So I was gonna then ask you, okay. So why have you paid tens of £millions for this ad agency on Common? And talk to me about how that fits into the strategy in terms of buying this creative agency that, you know, award-winning, not very old.
Yeah,
you know,
quite young.
Still a new ad agency. I mean, why have you acquired that? How
Yeah.
does that fit into the Havas strategy?
I don't know if everyone's familiar with the Uncommon. It's an agency created in 2017, I think, or 2016 in London by 3 people, Lucy, Natalie, and Niels. Very successful agencies, best independent agencies in Europe for the past 5 years. And they wanted to open up a new chapter. They wanted to expand internationally, and they were looking for the right partner to invest in their company. I met with them for the first time last year. I think it was in November 2022. They came to Paris because they were a bit paranoid that if we were seen together in London, I don't know why.
So how does it work when you do those acquisitions? You just call up Lucy, or how does it happen?
I mean, the meeting was through Donna Murphy, the CEO of the creative division of Havas, and also the health division. She told me, Yannick, you need to meet those guys. I heard about them, of course. I mean, they were the former management team at Grey, like super successful. So, okay, let's meet. I'll be in London next week. No, they don't want to meet in London. They're afraid that because they are quite well known here. So we met in Paris, which, by the way, it's not that discreet because my office in Paris. So we met in Paris. They thought it was more discreet. And I was blown away. I mean, the level of energy of those 3 people, what they have been building with brands, I mean, with their company. I mean, when you look at the British Airways commercial, I mean, it's just, it's pure genius.
But that's now, and that's for the short term. I mean, we always see with ad agencies all the time where they get, you know, these independents get acquired by a big holding group, and then founders are on an earn out, and then it's a different story.
No,
how
at
are you
Havas,
going to
people
guard
are
against
saying. No, at Havas, people are saying, look at BETC, which is the equivalent of the Uncommon in Paris. The founders have been here for 30 plus years. It's going to be 30 years next year, so 29 years. Buzzman that we acquired 5 years ago, we are post-earnout and all the founders are still here. I mean, people like it at Havas, they like it at Vivendi. We find ways where they can continue to be autonomous and get access to all the different expertise, media, PR, production, global creative network around the world when we go for a global pitch. So I mean, we found a right balance. I mean, at Havas, what we have to know, and at Vivendi in general, we are very entrepreneurial. And I think those founders, they like it, the ability to be autonomous, which is not easy for everyone, because that's true that people at Havas are autonomous, so they need to thrive being autonomous, which is not for everyone, but it's working well for those kind of people. And I mean, I believe creativity is key, because we're here to talk about the future of media. I don't know what the media landscape will look like in 10 years. I mean, I can do a projection in 100 years because I will be dead by then, so I don't care. 10 years, no. But what's for sure is that people will get access to more and more media, which means that the media landscape will get even more saturated. So if you want to be able to create a message that will reach its consumers or its prospects for people or brands, you will need to find a way to be super creative. Otherwise, people won't remember it. In today's world, you can no longer just pay for people's attention. It's not just about paid media. You invest £1 million, you get X GRPs, and with a 7-time repetition, and the product's going to sell by themselves. It's not at all what it is. You need to be creative. And by the way, I read an interesting study from Cannes Lions saying that an awarded campaign was 11 times more effective than a non-awarded campaign, which means that when you create something super creative or being perceived as being creative, people will remember it better. It will drive more sales from a business standpoint. So I'm a huge believer that creativity and media need to be working together. And this is why I would continue.
Is that something you'll look? Sorry to interrupt. Is that something you'll be looking to do with Uncommon as it integrates into Havas?
Yeah.
Getting to work with the media side of things.
Yeah,
how do you break down those silos that have existed for so long with the media accounts over there, the creative accounts over there? You've got an issue over who's actually speaking to the client in terms of account management. Is the creative person the media agency person?
Yeah, of course.
And how do you break that with your integrated account?
No, at Havas, like in any other holding companies, we have a creative division and a media division. When I joined Havas, I mean, I was working in TV before and movie production, so I was not working in advertising, so I joined Havas. And I was not part of one division or another. I was there for the group, for managing France and different things. And sometimes we met some clients, and I knew the people from media and I knew the people from the creative divisions separately. They were in different locations. Sometimes we had the same clients. So I had a friend, the CEO of a company or CMO, he told me, oh, let's meet with all the teams. It was like 12 years ago. I said, okay, let's meet with the team and take any client, like Canal Plus or Lacoste, whatever. And I realized that at the meeting with those clients, the people from Havas Media and Havas Creative, at that time it was called URSCG and MPG. Sorry for the archaeological side of discussion, but whatever, the people at Havas Media and Havas Creative, they didn't know each other. I mean, they were working for the same group, for the same client, and they introduced themselves. They were giving themselves business cards as they thought it was a client. So, okay, come on, it's weird. And it was getting even more complex. I mean, because we created some new expertise, social media, search. At that time, it was search. It was the emergence of mobile marketing. So we had the mobile division. So we had like clients who were working with us with 8 or 9 different groups of people. And this is how I got the idea to create the Together strategy, which was a big differentiation for us and for the industry, where we moved everybody to the same locations all around the world and tried to create a unified approach, a client-centric approach, which honestly had been a game changer. Look, here in London, 10 years ago, we had 7 different locations in central London. Now we have just one global village in King's Cross. I don't know if you have been there. I see some Havas friends, so of course they work there. It's a game changer because you can just meet with the people, exchange, and it's becoming a very seamless approach. And I think
very important, yeah.
The future of media is to be able to make people from different backgrounds, different expertise, work together on the same subject in the best interest of the client. I think the industry 10 years ago was very agency-centric, I would say. We expected that clients would adapt their organizations to ours, and we had to change because that's life, and the industry is becoming more and more client-centric, and this type of approach that we have at Havas, I think is the right one.
Okay, we've got a few minutes left. I want to open it up to audience Q&A if anyone has any questions for Yannick Bollore. But before I do, one of the questions that may come from the floor is about Shell. Havas Media won Shell's global accounts a few weeks ago, and it caused a lot of
yeah, I heard
interest
about it,
from this ongoing debate that we have in the industry about greenwashing. I mean, how do you see the issue of greenwashing? How do you see, you know, advertising agency or a media agency's right to do communication marketing services for a company like that versus the very real issue of allowing companies that, you know, produce fossil fuel to actually advertise what they're doing as opposed to what they say they're doing?
Yeah. No, thank you for asking the question, Omar. I think it's a very important question. First, I think that as media companies, as advertising groups, we have a responsibility. I believe that we have the power to clearly influence people's behavior through our content, through our creativity, through our media approach. And this power or this ability gives us a responsibility to use it for good. How can we make together the world a better place? I was the first, by the way, first CEO of the industry to put meaningfulness at the core of the mission of the group. The mission of Havas is how to make a meaningful difference to brands, businesses, and people. And this is not just a mission to look inspirational. It's something that we deeply believe, our ability to make a difference. Then we had the discussion with Shell because, of course, when the team has been asked to participate to the pitch, they reached out to the ExCom to check first if we didn't have any conflict or if it was okay to pitch for a fossil fuel company. And it was, honestly, it was an interesting conversation because, as always, we had pros and cons. The cons was a lot about the industry itself, about the talent, but I mean, I don't want just to talk about Shell because I don't want to talk just about one company. The question is...
Do you have a greenwashing policy? I mean, how do you navigate this?
So we have a greenwashing policy. We have policy for all the important things, as you can imagine. The question is, how do we deal with controversial industry? So of course we have fossil fuel, but you know, in the controversial industry, if you take the list from the certification agencies, you have the pharma industry, which is a complex case because I understand that sometimes they can pollute or test drugs on animals, but at the end they are saving a lot of lives. You have the car industry, you have the airline companies. I mean, airline companies, is it really controversial? I think it's good to discover new cultures. I mean, I have the chance to travel a lot, to discover new cultures, to be exposed to new people, new ways of thinking, and I think it's important that people travel. We have witnessed, unfortunately, the return of war in the world during the past 2-3 years, which I think is one of the most frightening things happening right now. Sorry for stating the obvious. You have the pet food industry as well, which is a controversial industry. So the question is, how do we deal with those kind of industries? It's not an easy one. We have had intensive discussions. My belief, and that's what I told the team, and I fully endorse the decision of the group, and I fully assume it, is that we need to be able to work. Well, my belief is first that in general, the most effective change comes from within. I believe that in our industry, as in any industry, as in any diplomatic relationship between countries, even if it's hard, we need to keep the dialogue open. And my belief is that our industry should be able to work with any industry as long, and the as long is important, as they embark themselves on a meaningful transition journey. So of course, I mean, you have so much scrutiny on on this particular account that our team will be monitoring very closely, that we don't do any kind, or we don't participate in any kind of greenwashing. But I believe that, once again, most effective change comes from within, and we need to give a chance to any company to do better and themselves trying to embark and make a positive, meaningful, effective difference.
So what you're saying is that as soon as you observe that Shell isn't on that transition journey, you're going to resign that account?
I don't want to talk about Shell in particular. No, because I mean, we have lots of industries we have to deal with. So you're talking about Shell because it's a particular issue in the UK, but in other countries we have the same kind of issue with other clients or other industries. I mean, some other countries are more sensitive with the pharma industry or with the car companies or with the airlines. So I don't want to focus on one particular company, but for sure, as long as they are engaged in a meaningful transition journey, we will try to continue to help them make a meaningful difference.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Yannick Bollore? Please raise your hand. You don't. We have a few minutes left. I have questions, don't worry. Nick Manning has a question in the front. Sorry, thank you, Steve.
Hi, yes, Nick Manning, columnist for the Media Leader. You've got a hell of a matrix there. You talked about 4 C's being channels, content, commerce, and creativity. You talked about innovation and international development. How do you manage that matrix? And particularly I'm thinking about how you manage the P&L side of it, because integration is crucial to all of this, and getting different operating units working well together sometimes can be hampered by conflicting P&Ls and organizational matters. How do you manage that incredibly complex matrix?
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for your question. I mean, it's, you talk, one of the C's you mentioned is creativity. So we'd like to be creative in our financial way of organizing the P&L. So we have a very strong CFO, François, and a great team. And they have been creating shadow P&L. I mean, at the end of the day, the 22,000 people at Havas know that we are super fair to them. So if they bring business to one another, they would be rewarded for it. So we have special bonuses, and they know that it's in the best interest of managing their accounts with their client to introduce great people and to develop it. And it's the case for Havas. I mean, I see Ahmed working for Havas Entertainment, working very closely with Studio Canal here in London and Vivendi, and they know that working together, at the end of the day, they will be rewarded for it. So being creative as well in how we do the financing and the P&L, I think it's important, and be fair to the people.
Ian Whisker in the front, and then KD afterwards. We'll probably have to wrap up after that.
Hi, Ian Whisker, Liberty Sky Advisors. Just on the scale of Havas, as you said, you've done the deal with Uncommon, you've done a couple of other deals as well. Sort of, when you look at Havas now, in terms of its size, and you mentioned before about being opportunistic, are you happy with the size that it is? Do you feel it though it can compete? Obviously you do feel as though it can compete, but do you think it could be taken to another level with perhaps greater scale and therefore more acquisitions?
I mean, the scale issue is a great question, and I'm always asking myself the question of scale, because we are not a small company. It's 22,000 people at Havas, so it's not like a small company around the corner. But still, when I look at the competition, there are sometimes 70,000 people, even I think 100,000 people for one of them. I think scale is important in terms of being large enough to serve global clients and to get access to global partnership, and at the same time being too big. If you look at the Darwin theory, in times of changes, the species who die are the ones who are the slowest to adapt. So I think it's important to be able to keep the right speed of movement while being big enough to create global deals and to serve global clients. So yesterday night we announced a big partnership with Adobe. We'll be a top partner to Adobe, which is very important in terms of AI. I think, by the way, it's been 6 months I haven't done any talk without talking about AI.
I have a question about AI, but we're running out of time.
Sorry. And so I think our scale is, of course, in some areas we can be better. We're investing in retail commerce in some part of the world, but globally, I'm happy with our scale.
KD had a question.
Thank you.
Question about
Hi
AI?
there, Katie Jones from Pixability. We do use AI, but I won't ask a question on it rather than break the thread. but we are a sort of industry of magpies, which alludes to that, and we're always dealing with controversies. There's always sort of new headlines that come up. How do you advise your teams and then your clients to deal with that sort of thing? Are you dealing with everything in the day-to-day? How do you persuade people to look at the bigger picture?
You mean internally when we work?
Both internally and with clients, because I'm sure they have concerns when there's a headline about something in the industry.
No, of course. I mean, crisis communication is real, especially in today's world with social media. I mean, it's accelerating, and compared to 10 years ago, the difference in crisis communication today with 10 years ago, I think the best line I have is we used to say that in the past, today's newspaper is wrapping tomorrow's fish. Because of internet and social media, it's no longer the case. So you cannot just wait and try that people will forget about it. So you need to fight, you need to advocate, you need to communicate. But once again, I mean, as I said in my introduction, the more complex it gets, the best it is for our industry. So I'm not saying it's a good thing for our clients that are in the middle of a controversy, but we are here to help, and there is a way to defend themselves and to look at the bigger picture. And talking about social media, because we're here to talk about Media 3.0, and I think not all of the media, I don't want to sound controversial myself, but
please do.
Not all the medias are the same or are worth the same. I mean, you cannot compare like a top newspaper with a huge great journalist, a senior journalist, to a social media written by two kids in a room. Sometimes we tend to look at all the response and the comment on Twitter, X, on Facebook. They are not all the same. So sometimes we need to elevate the way we are seeing things and to try to look at the global picture, to address the right message at our communities at the right time with the right approach. So I think sometimes we need to take a step forward and to look at the global picture. I agree with you. Yeah.
Banging the drum for quality media. That's a great note to end on, I think. Thank you so much to Yannick Bollore. Thank you so much for your questions.